How is everybody doing? Apologies for the slight delay there. I was just fixing my microphone. Should be good to go. How is everyone doing? Welcome back to another live stream. We're going to be discussing Bitcoin and the crypto market because we had quite a big sell-off, just recently here, down to 89.2. It feels like just yesterday we were at $94,000. And, it was on Tuesday, we were trading at 94.4. We even got as high on Monday as 94.7. That's in my time zone. So maybe if you're in the US, the times could be different. But we were up trading 94.4, 94.7, and then we came all the way back down to 89.2. And I told you guys on the last live stream that typically what happens when we lose this major level, which is 94K, is we get a quite big sell-off shortly after. And every single time we have done this, we have rejected quite brutally. And it's no surprise that we've done it again. So if the bottom is in here, then structurally, we don't look too bad, okay? Structurally, it still looks all right. But this 94K level, I mean, it is one of the most brutal levels that I've seen Bitcoin reject at. Every single time we hit it, we reject. I mean, I don't know how many numbers, I don't know how many times it's happened, but it's a high number. But we reject it again. Now, typically when you reject here, you come all the way back to the lows of the range, which is really anywhere between kind of 83K up to 84K, that kind of region there, right? 83, 84K. That's typically what happens when you reject. You come straight back down, and we've been trading in this sideways range for a long period of time here. You can see here, rejection, come straight back down to the lows of the range, rejection, and eventually we came straight back down to the lows of the range. So you would think, because we've rejected again here, we're going to come straight back down to the lows of the range, 84, 83. It's possible. That would seem the logical scenario by looking at this chart. But I stand by the fact, and maybe a bit of it's intuition, but I stand by the opinion, not the fact, because it's not a fact, it's an opinion. I stand by the opinion that Bitcoin will see 100K early this year. I think it will see 100K this month, probably. And I expect a rejection around that point. I've talked about that on multiple live streams now, that I'm expecting a move up to the 50-week moving average, to the 200 daily moving average, which is at 106K. So between 101 to 106K, somewhere in that region, I'm expecting a rejection. So I stand by that. Now, we could come down here. I think the scenario for us dropping lower would be a weak unemployment claims and a weak non-farm unemployment change or employment change. If they come in bad, then for sure that could negatively impact the markets. But the thing with employment data is sometimes bad news is good news, right? And sometimes good news is bad news. So it's really hard to determine. Whereas with inflation, more or less always, the lower the inflation is, the better. With employment data, sometimes if you're wanting a rate cut or the market wants a rate cut, if it comes in a bit weak, it's not always a bad thing. So it's more how the market responds to these data points than what the actual number is itself. We need to see the market response. We did get some employment data come in today, which we can see here. Here we go. Let me make sure. Got the wrong tab up here. So we did get the job openings. That came in. We got 7.15. Sorry, that was yesterday. Let me just refresh this. Got the wrong date up. There we go. So we got the JOLTS job openings. That came in yesterday, and that came in at 7.15 million with the forecast of 7.61 million. But today, we got unemployment claims come in, and that came in at 208,000 with a forecast of 213,000. Now, unemployment claims, the lower the better for the economy, okay? If you have low unemployment claims, then that means less people are unemployed. So you want people to be employed, not unemployed. So if less people are unemployed, then that's a good thing for the economy. It came in at 208,000. The forecast was 213,000. So less people are unemployed than what was expected. But on Friday, which is tomorrow, we get the non-farm employment change, we get the unemployment rate, and then we get the average hourly earnings. The two important ones are the non-farm employment change and the unemployment rate, but especially the non-farm employment change. That's the big one that is going to really impact the markets. But anyway, back to Bitcoin's price action. You would think looking at this chart that we're going to go lower here, but I think we're going to go higher. I don't think we're going to go back to the lows of the range. And if we do, I don't think that is going to be support. So I'm kind of hoping we go higher as well, which isn't really a strategy. But if we do end up going back to the lows of the range here, I think we're probably going to lose it because you can only keep doing this so many times and eventually you're going to lose structure and head back down to 74K. So what I'm saying is if this is not the legitimate bounce that brings us up to the 50-week moving average, then it's probably not looking good. And I personally believe that we will get a bounce here. If you look at Bitcoin on the shorter time frame, on the 30-minute, we've had this clear downtrend since the second high at 94.4. So they were looking at the short term here. We had a rejection here. We had a couple rejections here. Rejection, and then finally we've broken above it. So we have had some form of a breakout, a micro breakout. This isn't a macro breakout. This isn't on a higher time frame, but on the 30-minute, on the hour, we've seen a breakout move. And hopefully this is actually a legitimate move and we don't just come straight back down and invalidate it, right? So what I'm looking for is for Bitcoin to start pushing up here as it has broke out of this downtrend. And yeah, if we get that, then we should be seeing a move back up to around 94K if this continues. And then after 94K, I've told you guys, after 94K, once we get above that, 94, 95, once we see Bitcoin with a 9.5 next to it and not a 9.4, because that's the area of danger. That's the danger zone. Once we get above 9.4 and we're seeing 9.5, 9.6, that move to the 50-week will happen very, very quickly, in my opinion. So once we get above this massive wall, once we get above this massive hurdle, we're going straight up, in my view, to that 50-week moving average, which I'm going to show on the screen right now. For those of you who don't know where it is, we want to give you a little reminder again here. The 50-week moving average is at 101K. I believe once we get past that 94 hurdle, we'll see a move straight up to that. And I've told you before that my base case is, in fact, a rejection of that 50-week moving average. We might not reject exactly pinpoint at that level. We might go a little bit higher, in which case maybe we go for that 200 daily moving average, which is, in fact, trading right now, or is, in fact, moving right now at 106.4K. So if we get past the 50, I'm expecting a rejection at the 200 daily. 50-week, 200 daily, one of those, in my view, is going to be a rejection point, and that is going to, in fact, lead us on to the further macro move down, where I do unfortunately believe we will go to $74,000 and probably lose that, and that is where we see that move down to the 200-week moving average. Now, I want to just give one little caveat here, because there is a chance where Bitcoin doesn't go below 74K. And I'm going to outline where that might be possible. So we know the 200-week moving average is creeping up. And you can maybe estimate the pathway that it is doing here based off, obviously, Bitcoin's previous price action, because all the 200-week moving average is the average of where Bitcoin's been moving for the past 200 weeks. Self-explanatory, right? So obviously, Bitcoin for the last 200 weeks has been trading high. It's been trading higher, really, than 50K for the majority of it. So this is only going to go up the more Bitcoin consolidates in the 90s. And if Bitcoin does just consolidate for months here, like genuinely does another freaking 7 or 8 month sideways thing like it usually has done this cycle. For some reason, it likes to do this type of thing where it goes sideways for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months. If it does something like that, then you could have a situation where the 200-week moving average is in fact somewhere around 74K. Now, it's going to take a long time, and I don't think we're going to get there anytime soon with the 200 moving average. But, some point maybe middle of 2026, something like that, that's where the 200-week moving average could be. Now, it's hard to fully predict where it will be, but if Bitcoin chops around these levels, trades around these levels and ranges, you could have a situation where Bitcoin meets its 200-week moving average very close to that 74K level. Maybe not exactly 74, maybe it's 70K or 69K, but Bitcoin doesn't have to go into the 50s, guys. Just because the 200-week moving average right now is at 57K doesn't mean if we meet it in 6 months, it's going to be at 57K. In fact, it won't be at 57K in 6 months. It will be higher. So what I'm trying to say is depends how long it takes for this move down to the 200-week. That's why I don't give you exact levels for where I think the bottom will be. I think the bottom will be based off the 200-week moving average. That's where I think the bottom is. There's been a couple people on my highest tier on the bundle message me and say, what price is the bottom? I don't know. Don't know what price it will be. But I believe it will be very, very close, if not on the 200-week moving average, because that's typically around the point Bitcoin bottoms. Now, 2022 was a slight deviation because we had the FTX crash, which took us a bit lower. But we were very close to bottoming out at that 200-week. Very close indeed. But we had a recession as well in the US, which was under Biden, and they made out that there was no recession, but we did, in fact, have one. We had 2 negative quarters of GDP decline, which is, by definition, a recession, but for whatever reason, they covered it up. But had the recession not happened, had the FTX situation not happened, Bitcoin would have probably bottomed at 22K, and that would have been the level that it bottomed out at, and we would have bounced. Because we bottomed out in March of 2020 at the 200-week. Now, I count candle closes, not wicks, all right? These wicks, those are just deviations. The candle close is really what matters because at the end of the day, that's the real structure. The wicks, they can happen drastically. Wicks to me aren't too important. It's more about the actual candle closes when I'm looking at this. So you had a wick below, but the candle close was in fact on the level. That was the COVID crash, right? That was the COVID crash. So even during the COVID crash, despite Bitcoin breaking structure on a wick, it didn't, in fact, really break its structure with the 200-week moving average because it respected it on the close. And I do not count a wick as a break of structure. So during the COVID crash, we wicked down to that 200-week moving average, or we closed on the 200-week moving average. During the actual bear market of 2018, we found our actual bottom at the 200-week moving average to the T. And we used it as support multiple times. You can see the $3,000 level was the exact bottom on the 200-week moving average, actually on it. Then we bottomed a little bit higher. We did a second bottom here that was at 3.3K, again, right on that 200-week moving average. I think if you go back even further as well, it respects it. You can see here, even back in 2015, you're respecting that 200-week moving average as a support zone. So this is not a random level. It's not like I've just miraculously came up with this indicator. This is something that's been in play for a long time, and it will continue to be in play for a long time. So when people ask me, where will the bottom be for Bitcoin? I say the 200-week moving average. And as long as we don't have any miraculous global financial crash or World War III or anything like that, I think it's going to play out that way. And we're going to bottom on the 200-week. Obviously, anything can happen. World War III could happen. We could have a global financial crisis. Binance or Coinbase could go under. There's always black swans which could take us even lower than it, right? Just like FTX did. But most likely, the 200-week will be a bottoming point for Bitcoin. And until that happens, we have to be patient. We have to wait. And we have to just trade the market we see and not trade the market that we hope for or we want. And right now I see a market that favors short-term buying. You don't need to use leverage. If you want to use leverage, then obviously Blowfin I would recommend as the exchange. That's the exchange I use. I'm not recommending leverage, to be clear. But you can do spot on Blowfin. You can do leverage on Blowfin. It's the exchange I personally use. And there is a link down below where you can get exclusive rewards if you use my link only. But yeah, the bottom for me will be the 200 week, most likely, unless we get one of those crazy black swans, which you can't account for anyway. So in a usual bear market for Bitcoin, we'll bottom at the 200 week. It is creeping up, which is the good thing. So, you know, it really depends when we hit it. If we hit it Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, who knows? I hope it's Q1. We can just get it over and done with. We can dump straight down, get it over with, and then have some really nice recovery out of, you know, the rest of the year. But hoping is not a strategy, is it? We know that. So hopefully that kind of gave some clarity on my viewpoint for the bear market. But short term, we're looking quite bullish. I'm favoring that move up to the 50 week. You know, yes, we've had another rejection at 94, which you would say is bearish, but I like what I'm seeing here. We're getting a little bit of a breakout from the downtrend, and I think Bitcoin kind of supported a golden pocket, didn't it? I think it did. Is it this one? Depends where you go from. Sometimes it's not always clear where you should go from, but we basically came down to a golden pocket, wick slightly below it, and then we got a bounce. So I am liking what I'm seeing. And if you actually look at Bitcoin on the 4 hour, here, there is a situation where you could, in fact, get some form of a cup and handle potentially. Now, this is speculative, and it's not the most obvious thing you've ever seen, but there is a chance that Bitcoin could do something like this and give us a nice recovery here, and then push above that 94K. And that would be your move up to, you know, the 50-week moving average that we've talked about extensively here. So I hope everyone's doing great. Let's see if we have any questions in the chat. But as always, I'll be active in the VIP Discord. I'll be in there answering people's questions, sharing chart alerts, sharing my trades, sharing my stock market purchases. All of that good stuff will be in the Discord. Voice chats as well, pretty much every day. Russell 2000 just made a new all-time high. So that's good news for risk on assets. Hopefully crypto follows. So people seem pretty optimistic, pretty positive, despite the fact Bitcoin's come down. And this is a really good thing to gauge sentiment, you know, using this group as a sentiment gauge. Yeah, we have some really, really good voice chats. I mean, look, right now, there's over 100 members online. So that's the kind of group you're in when you're in this group. There's voice chats, and there'll be hundreds of people packed in them, all talking about the markets, loads of different opinions. Anyway, let's get some of the questions. Tomorrow is going to be a big day in terms of data. I think we also have tomorrow the decision on the tariffs. So that's something to pay attention to. The way it's looking right now, the Fed are not going to be cutting rates anytime soon. It's highly likely we get a cut in 2026. It's highly likely that we get a few cuts. But they're probably going to be in the back end of the year, second half of the year, as opposed to Q1. Unless we get a disastrous labor market report, which the way it's looking, the labor market doesn't seem as bad as some have worried. I mean, if you look at the unemployment claims, came in better than expected. Can you look at Tau? Let's take a quick look at Tau. See how Tau is doing. I love Tau. It's one of the best projects out there. Yeah, Tau's doing a nice move here. you've got that perfect cup. Really nice kind of U shape, followed by like a mini handle, and now we're bouncing off, right? I mean, there's no cup and handles don't always have to be like that. They can be a quick, small little handle, right? So yeah, Tao's looking really good. In fact, if it can push above this horizontal resistance line, I mean, I prefer the bigger line because it's a more broader resistance point, but let's get that point there. If it can push above that green box there, Tau, I would expect quite an impulsive move up, but it does need to get above that bit of resistance. But so far, it's looking pretty good, Tau. It is looking pretty good. I mean, you could even take the trade here at the point above this resistance, but you just need a bit more confirmation. But yeah, nice trade, man, if you got into Tau. Crypto Future, how you doing, my friend? Great to have you in the stream. If you guys don't know Crypto Future, make sure you're following him. I've been on his show a couple times now, and it was a pleasure. Crypto Future, did you see what happened with XPL, brother? I shared XPL on your live stream to some of the viewers. I mentioned it as a altcoin to watch. You asked me what would be my altcoin to watch for 2026, and I said XPL would be one to watch for when it gets that breakout move above that resistance line. And we got that really nice breakout trade for XPL. So really happy with that. But we could be getting cup and handles on a lot of different alts. And I'm not a pattern trader. I'll admit I'm very bad with patterns, actually. I'm more of a non-pattern trader. My pattern recognition isn't elite. So I'll be honest about that. But sometimes it's obvious, right? You get these really nice setups. I mean, this pattern with XPL, it was in one of the clearest downtrends I've seen. I mean, this channel it's been trading in for so long, beautiful, beautiful channel. So nice. I mean, it's a work of art. It's a work of art. I know it looks terrible to most people. Most people see this, they see an altcoin just basically rugging to zero. But that's what I like as a crypto swing trader. All right. These are the types of altcoins that have made me the most money. In my crypto career, the biggest gains by far I've made have not been leverage trading, not been meme coins. I mean, last cycle it was memes, but in general, it's been spotting a quality project that's been in a clear downtrend and then catching that break. Those are the trades. Sui was the perfect example of that. When I made a 7x or whatever it was on Sui, it was in a clear downtrend for a long period of time. We caught it, it broke out, and the money was made. There was loads of other examples as well, but this reminds me of that type of trade. Now, yes, if Bitcoin's going into a bear market, XPL won't make a new high. It might give some nice little 2, 3, 4x pumps, but it's not going to do anything crazy. That's why in a bear market, you're much more conservative with your profit taking. You can still make good profits on alts. You just need to be more conservative about when you take those profits. Yeah, I never shilled Zcash. I was never a analyst on Zcash, but it's crazy what's happening over there. Appreciate the support. Yeah, I agree. It's most likely a dead cat bounce, but you can make money on a dead cat bounce if you're cautious and you're aware that it probably is a dead cat bounce and you're not thinking you're getting all-time highs next week. Yeah, Crypto Goals, how's it going, man? Good to see you on the stream. I agree that, market is probably cooked. You might catch some quick moves here and there. I agree. I think we reject around 100K to 106, that region. just because that's what's happened historically, is you reject at the 50-week moving average or the 200 daily moving average. So I'm expecting a rejection there, followed by a more macro move down to complete that final move down of the bear market. You know, one point the Russell 2000 and Total 3 were correlated perfectly. I don't think I've ever seen a correlation closer in my life than the Russell 2000 and Total 3. They looked absolutely identical when you pull up the charts weekly or the 2-week. Absolutely identical. For whatever reason, they've detached. Now, I say whatever reason as if I don't know, but I do know the reason. And I'm going to explain to you in a moment why Bitcoin and crypto no longer follow the Russell 2000, because they've been following it for a very long period of time. They've been following it for years. What's happened? Why has BTC, or more importantly, Total 3, which follows it even closer? Let's pull up the Total 3 2-week chart. Why has Total 3 stopped correlating to the Russell 2000? Why is the correlation no longer as strong? Okay, I'm going to share this with anyone who doesn't know. So you got the Russell here. You got the COVID crash. Sorry, this is Total 2. Let me pull up Total 3. There we go. So you have major bull market. Really big recovery here. Major bull market. Same with the Total 3 chart. Major bull market. Where was the top? Well, the top was November 2021. Where was the top for Total 3? November 2021. Both of them topped basically the same point. Where was the bottom? The bottom was Q4 2023. Or, sorry, Q4 2022. That was where the bottom was. See? It's a very slight difference, but that was where the bottom was. Q4 2022. Q4 2022 is the bottom for the Russell. Have a guess. Q4 2022 was the bottom for Total 3. Then we had another high end of 2024 and a second high in October for Total 3. For the Russell, we had another high end of 2024 around the election time and a second high in October. Same exact thing. But now the Russell has left the station. Now it's entering price discovery mode. Now it's saying goodbye to everyone who's left at the bus stop. It's left the station. It's gone. And it looks like it's going to keep going up. But what's happened to Total 3, man? It's completely cooled off. It's on pause. I've been building up the suspense there, you see? Now everyone's wondering why. I put it down to two main reasons. Two main reasons. And they kind of interlink. One is the 4-year cycle for Bitcoin and the fact that people sold based off the 4-year cycle deadline being October. Now, you can argue about the 4-year cycle all day, about the halving, whether it has any impact anymore, I don't care. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. If everyone believes it, it happens. That's kind of what's been happening with the 4-year cycle sellers. So one reason is the 4-year cycle. People sold based off a time-based cycle and a deadline. They sold. They got out. That caused a dump in and of itself. The Russell 2000 doesn't have as much of a 4-year cycle argument as Bitcoin. Don't get me wrong, there is certainly a cycle there, but it's more of an interest rate cycle, the business cycle. The Russell 2000 is more of a rate-driven cycle. It doesn't have a halving, right? There's no halving for the Russell 2000, whereas Bitcoin has a halving. So That's what's happened. The 4-year cycle sellers have come into Bitcoin and crypto and sold. Now, obviously, other coins don't follow the same tokenomics as Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's the king. If Bitcoin sells off, all the other alts sell off as well. So that's what's happened. The 4-year cycle sellers have pushed Bitcoin down and therefore pushed crypto down. And then the second reason I was going to give is the 10-10 crash, which kind of aligns with it all as well, right? So the massive liquidation day, that hurt this industry. So those are the reasons why crypto and Bitcoin and Total 3 are no longer following the Russell 2000 like they once did. Now, people who are optimists will say this is just a brief decoupling and Bitcoin is lagging behind. That's what the optimists will say. Those who are pessimists would say, actually, we've detached now. This marriage has ended. They've divorced. So, depends which side of the aisle you're on. I would say that merely saying that it's lagging is optimistic and maybe a bit naive. I hope I'm wrong, but this idea it's lagging and that's why, it's a little bit of a cop-out for me because there's no basis for that. Usually Bitcoin actually leads risk on equities, not the other way around. Bitcoin's the most liquid asset in the world. Why would the most liquid asset in the world lag? Doesn't really make sense, right? The more illiquid assets would lag. The most liquid asset in the world, Bitcoin, would not lag more illiquid assets. It doesn't really make sense. Maybe here and there it does, but more likely than not, it's just a detachment. And eventually we will realign, but who knows how long. And that's why when you just use the excuse it's lagging, there's no real basis on that. It could lag for a whole year. It's not really a statement you can really back up. Hit up the likes on the stream. Absolutely. Welcome to the stream, Bren. Hope everyone's doing good. Hit the likes. You're getting great alpha. Perfect call by you on XPL. Appreciate that. Appreciate the support, Crypto Future. Good to have you in the stream. Yeah, definitely check out the VIP group if you want more insights. If you want to see exactly what I'm buying in the market, you would have got that XPL trade the moment I got in. And on 1x leverage, it did around 50%. I think it was, maybe even more, 50, 60%. So if you use 2x leverage, you would have doubled your money. But yeah, guys, that's all from me. I didn't want to waste your time too much. Hopefully you got some valuable insights from the stream. Appreciate each and every one of you watching the show today. And yeah, definitely get yourselves in the Discord. You can get in the Discord through the VIP group, which is linked down below. wap.com/CryptoArchie. Lots of different options. You can also book a call for free. No charge, no hidden fee, absolutely zero cost. You can book a call with my right-hand man, with one of my representatives, and discuss your portfolio, discuss strategy going forward if you're out of the market, all of that. B Lush, yeah, I think they are divorced, but they're going to get back together at some point. That's what I think's going on with the Russell and Total 3. Or maybe they're not divorced. Maybe they're just having a bit of time away from each other, for some months. But you can only have a lag for so long. People who say something's lagging, quite often they say that as a cop out, as a coping mechanism. You could say anything's lagging anything. You can't always prove that statement. But guys, appreciate all of you. Make sure you have a great rest of your day.